This is Adam at Kreft Moto. This video is about the 2017 KTM XC-W line, and in particular, a review of the new Xplor suspension. If you're familiar with past XC-Ws, you won't have trouble adapting to the new one. It retains most of the characteristics of the trail-oriented wide-ratio transmission KTMs we're accustomed to. The most significant improvement by far is the new engine counterbalancer. The motor is as powerful and responsive as ever, but has much less vibration than previous years. In terms of ergonomics, I was completely at home with the new frame and cockpit layout. It's comfortable and narrow between the knees, and the bike has a nice lightweight feel. From a tuner's perspective, the Xplor suspension looks like a cost-cutting measure for KTM. The new shock body was downsized from 50mm to 46mm, which reduces fluid volume and could contribute to heat buildup and fade. The fork is very similar to the previous generation open cartridge fork, the major difference being the split compression and rebound adjustment. Xplor has a single rebound adjuster on top of the right fork and a single compression adjuster on top of the left fork, just like WP used on the more or less universally hated 4CS fork. KTM's marketing department argues that this setup makes the adjusters more accessible and more convenient to the rider. However, I think every engineer at WP knows the real motivation was to eliminate two expensive compression adjuster mechanisms from the bottom of the fork. Dyno testing at our facility shows what the compression adjuster on the Xplor fork actually does. The first chart shows the Xplor fork with the compression adjuster fully open at the halfway point and fully closed. In comparison, here's the adjustment range of the old open cartridge fork at the same three adjustment settings. As you can see, the Xplor compression adjuster has very little impact on compression stiffness. Most important of all, the Xplor adjuster has no effect whatsoever in the low speed range, shown here from 0 to 500mm per second. Your suspension is constantly working in the low speed range, and being able to make adjustments here is critical. Making the adjuster more accessible doesn't help if the adjuster doesn't work properly. This chart summarizes our impressions of the 2017 Xplor suspension compared to the 2016 XC-W suspension it replaces. As you can see, we gave the 2016 model, represented here in blue, higher marks overall. Balance. XC-Ws are typically set up a little softer in the front than the back, and that setup makes sense for some applications, but 2017 takes that imbalance to a whole new level. The Xplor fork is softer than the model it replaced, and the shock is stiffer than the model it replaced. As a result, I found myself constantly hanging out over the back of the bike, trying to stabilize the chassis and reduce the effects of excessive fork dive. Slow speed impacts. The upside to the super soft Xplor fork is that it offers good comfort in slow speed rock gardens. If you are new to the sport or spend most of your time riding very slowly first gear terrain, you are much more likely to appreciate the stock fork performance. The cushy fork is somewhat offset by a shock that will occasionally deliver a sharp kick to the backside on square-edged obstacles. Medium and high-speed impacts. Unfortunately, the Xplor fork's slow-speed compliance completely disappears as the speeds increase. Watch out for unseen rocks when clipping along in third gear, because the fork can feel completely solid on this type of obstacle. Cornering. I gave the 2017 low marks in cornering for three reasons. First, the suspension setup is unbalanced to begin with. Second, the Xplor fork has the worst brake dive I've experienced in any modern performance-oriented dirt bike. Unfortunately, fork dive can't be reduced by adjusting the clicker due to the problems with WP's split adjuster system explained earlier. Finally, the Xplor PDS shock still has the same top-out tendency that we saw in previous generation PDS shocks. Together, these factors cause a rapid and excessive weight transfer onto the front wheel when setting up for a corner. This can make the front end knife or tuck. Whoops! In the whoops, the chassis balance issue continues to haunt us. Supercross riders are known to run extremely stiff fork settings combined with relatively soft shock settings to keep the front end up and the bike tracking straight through the whoops. The XC-W, with its bouncy fork and PDS kick in the back, is literally the opposite of this setup. The fork completely collapses on the face of every whoop, exaggerating the tendency of the shock to boot the back end of the bike up into the air. Adjustability. Fortunately, the Xplor shock retains the same adjustment features as the previous PDS shock, with high-speed compression, low-speed compression, and rebound adjusters all working as they should. The Xplor fork with its split adjuster design is another matter. As we demonstrated earlier in the video, the fork has very little compression adjustment range and zero ability to adjust low-speed compression damping where we need it most. In conclusion, the 2017 KTM 300 XC-W hit a home run with the new motor, but took some irritating shortcuts with the Xplor suspension. It's possible KTM is targeting the bike for beginners, but this is still an expensive, high-end dirt bike, and I think a lot of serious riders will continue to buy XC-Ws for the wide ratio transmission, linkless rear suspension, and the headlight. Kreft Moto is about halfway through our development program for Xplor. We'll be finalizing our design updates and fine-tuning settings over the next few weeks. We'll post updates as soon as they become available. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the Kreft Moto channel. Thanks for watching.